good evening. You're watching the India Development Debate with me, Tamanna Inamdar, and today we're asking the question that really needs to be asked, which is simply 20 days after an economic task force was first announced, we're still waiting for a clear economic package, a package that will really boost the lives of those who desperately need it beyond what has already been announced by the Finance Ministry, one that will ensure that businesses don't die off one by one and save them from perishing at the rate which they are at currently. A package which ensures that pay and salaries and jobs don't just evaporate, leading perhaps to a longer term crisis. We understand that it's tough. No one is saying that it's easy. On the one hand, the government right now is focusing all of its energies, as it should, on battling and beating back COVID-19. But even as it does that, it is important to remember, like several nations around the world have, that lockdown comes with its economic impact and its effects. And it's time perhaps to find a way to get those wheels in motion before long-lasting damage is being done. To speak on this issue, I'm joined today by Niranjan, Hiranandani and Naina, Kidwai, both of course people who understand the economy, business and the corporate sector in and out, as well as what it takes to make tough decisions. Welcome to both of you, and thank you for speaking with us on the India Development Debate this evening. Ms. Kidwai, let me come to you first, just on your take on the basic premise with which we've started this discussion. Great job that the government is doing as much as it can in terms of the lockdown. State governments are trying to make sure that there's social distancing, the numbers are climbing. But what about the economic package? It seems like that has just disappeared off the conversation.
Tamanna, I don't think it's disappeared. I think the reality of it is very much in everyone's face, whether it's migrant labor and the fact that they formed the workforce for much of industry. And today, even companies which are producing essential commodities and have full clearance to move goods are not being able to function because of lack of labor. So the best statistics I've heard are in and around the 20% capacity utilization mark, even for FMCG companies, which are in food products and in what are defined as essential products. And the reason for that is, on the one hand, workers not coming back in, and it's not necessarily just migrant labor. It is workers' families who are holding them back. And I understand that for those that do come, they get ostracized by the communities when they go back home. So the scare of the virus, and rightly I imagine, is in itself creating an issue in terms of getting factories that could be operating at much higher levels, struggling to even be at the 25% capacity utilization. So I think that what the government is doing an excellent job of right now is trying to sort through the mess of transportation, helping these companies get up and running. Sectors like pharma had raw material shortages, APIs that needed to be shipped from China, for example. So airlifting medical supplies. So there are many day-to-day battles that are having to be fought just to even supply what has been approved as essential commodities. I think what's underwriting your question, of course, is what's next. After all, we have to begin to move to jumpstart the economy because we can't leave it in limbo for too long. The price is huge. And maybe that's what we could address in the rest of the debate as well.
You know, it's of course, it's a question about what's next, but it's also a very direct question about why not so far. Why could have some clear economic measures not gone hand in hand with all of the measures that have been put in place so far? Do we not need to increase the amount of money going to the poorest of the poor? We've now had a situation where we've had to rope in NGOs. Small and medium businesses have literally been left to fend for themselves. Niranjan, Hiranandani, if you could come in on some of these points. I know the real estate industry is also asked for a sort of a bailout package. No one knows if it's really going to come and to what extent the government will be able to actually help out.
Tamanna, we have to be very clear in our mind. Do we need a package? Do we not need a package? It is our belief in ASSOCHAM, in NAREDCO, that the package as it stands today requires a huge amount of increase that is needed in order to put the economy back on track. While I agree fully with Naina that the first steps have been taken, but I think we have a long way to come before we can get the economy back onto track. The estimates of what we have done is based on what is happening internationally, what has happened in America, what has happened in Europe, what has happened to all the other rest of the countries. Most of them are talking about packages equivalent to 10% of GDP in order to handle the situation as we do. And hence, we have talked about that there should be a package totaling to, in different ways, not necessarily to industry, of about 200 billion US dollars in order to tackle this issue, in order to bring the economy back to track. Of course, this could be done in different ways. One of the ways is the balance amount of payment which is required to be made in terms of refund, not the 5 lakhs of rupees for income tax, but all the refunds that are now presently due. Refunds in respect of GST, payments in respect of PSUs, which have to be done, payments for the power companies, which have not been paid by the states and other authorities. All this is required to be paid, and the estimates that we have got with ourselves is about 1,90,000 crores. So if nothing else is done, if this first amount is paid, that itself will make a huge amount of difference of bringing money into the economy. The second discussion that we have had is the issue of a one-time rollover, which we had talked about with the Reserve Bank of India. This was done previously in 2008 during the Lehman crisis on the advice of the World Bank. And this happened at that point of time. Today, our situation is about 100 times worse than it was in October of 2008. And we therefore request that this one-time turnaround or resettlement of this package needs to be done. The third important thing is the lack of liquidity. There is no liquidity in the market. Our banks are, of course, flush with money. After the last money increase of the Reserve Bank, more than 4.5 lakh crores are lying with the banking system, but they are being deposited back into the Reserve Bank. So all these factors which you should take into account, we do not have enough money, we don't have enough liquidity. I do compliment the Prime Minister on the handling of the lockdown. I think it's a unique thing that he has done, probably the best in the world. And I really compliment the entire government machinery on that. But we need to do a lot on the economic front. 23% people don't have jobs. And this is not talking about the people who are not counted in the informal sector. So we need to do a lot for the economics of our country. I could go on for a few items more, but I'd rather, speak about it a little later.
Yeah, we'll get the discussion moving. No, we'll get the discussion moving. Fair enough. This is something that we talk about very often on the show, and it's something that we've been tackling over the last few days. Viewers will recognize that you will have to find some kind of a balance. So we spoke earlier about perhaps some relaxations in a phased manner. But Naina, you talked about those industries that are allowed to supply are finding it difficult to do so on the ground. these are administrative issues which need to be ironed out. I want to come to you specifically on the question of wage support, and this is a tricky one. A lot of countries have implemented wage support. We have asked essentially businesses, please don't sack people. They've still gone ahead and perhaps gotten, have asked their contract labor or contract workers to go, pay cuts, pay deferments for others. Do you think there is a case for wage support?
You know, my heart is absolutely in that wage support being provided, because we do have this issue of what does the day worker, the day laborer do? But there's never an easy answer to a question like this, Tamanna. The other side of it is, if I'm getting my wages, why would I report to work? And if I'm not reporting to work, then that same plant, which I said is working at 25% capacity for lack of workers coming in, is going to continue at 25%. So do you pay or not pay? And what indeed is happening right now, I understand, is workers, truckers are being lured back to the workplace with increases 25, 30% over what they would have otherwise earned, to at least make sure that those that are willing to come in. So wage support to who is critical, and wage support by who? It really isn't fair for the government to leave it to companies to bear the brunt of this for long periods of time. These same companies are already struggling to stay alive. So all we're going to do is kill them faster. So I do think that if wage support is to be given, the best way seems to be to really tackle those that are in pain. So whether it's through the direct benefit transfers on the one hand, or on the other, to make sure nobody goes hungry, providing food, which whether it's NGOs or local groups or companies, everybody's engaged in, whether it's to migrant labor or others. But we have to make sure people don't go hungry. I would subscribe to a number of economists who have suggested that, just allow for free flow of food grain that's in any case overflowing in our many go-downs across the country, and make sure that that is available so people aren't starving for lack of product either reaching them, which is the logistics, or the actual supply while it sits around in warehouses. But wage support for industry, yes, I think a guideline from government to say, look, please don't sack people. In some cases, companies may be able to persuade all labor to take cuts in order to support everybody. But at the end of the day, the only way industry is going to survive, even in the medium term, is by cutting costs, because demand is not going to come back in a hurry, because it was already on its way down, as we know, over the last 12 months. And until the industries themselves are up and running at levels where they can support themselves, there will be issues. Then compounding that is what Niranjan touched on, which is the liquidity. Banks are liquid, but those that need the money aren't getting it readily. So how do we ensure flows to sectors which you asked, Tamanna, like real estate? Now, to me, the construction industry is a critical one, and it is often the last industry that is hit by any country in terms of shutdown, simply because it requires so much support from small players, multiple suppliers, and of course, workers. So whether it's jobs or whether it's supporting small industry, the construction sector is critical. And I did see that yesterday, our Minister for Transportation did say that we were going to look at selectively going back to building the roads, etc. I think that's great. I mean, any chart of India shows very large parts of India are green, some that are amber. So maybe we can look at those parts which are not inflicted by COVID to reopen quickly, and do it through sectors like construction, not necessarily just real estate, but infrastructure construction as well, to ensure that we can bring the workers back in and that they can earn their wages.
Well, can we bring the workers back in? Niranjan, I'm going to, play devil's advocate in this question with you. Many say that corporate India should be the last sector asking for help right now. We're a country with great economic disparity. First, we need to feed those who are hungry and starving. We need to help those who are sick with COVID-19. We need to protect our doctors. Then we need to perhaps look at the smallest and smaller businesses. Then we can even think of corporate India and big sectors and industry. What is your response to that?
My response is simple. If you continue to think like that, then you won't have 25% of people unemployed. You'll have 100% of the people unemployed. Otherwise, government will have to employ everybody. So I don't agree with you at all. I think the situation is quite serious. And I don't think even you should even be a devil's advocate in suggesting such things that we should be the last person out. Even countries like Bangladesh have been giving wage supports to the employees.
Many people are asking this question. Yeah.
I'm not. But
yeah, many people are asking the question, which is why I'm addressing it.
No, you can address it because you're on the media, but it's nonsensical. You can't understand the pain in the economy, the poor people, and you're talking about people getting unemployed, and it's okay to throw out and cut off wages and things like that and not give them employment and jobs. It's ridiculous. I mean, this country will be just devastated if you think like that. If you're not going to be able to give the support, if you're not going to bring back the demand in the economy, you don't understand what is happening at the ground. People are starving. They will be really starving over a period of time, and it's so difficult to really manage it. Those people walking right up to their homes for 400 kilometers didn't do it for nothing. There was so much pain, and it hurts me to see that we can provide an economic stimulus. Why can't we do it quickly? And I agree that the priority should be the health of the people, the food to the poor, and it must be done. And I really compliment the government. My heart goes out to these poor people who have been looked after. But we need to do a lot more in order to provide a stimulus if you want to bring the economy back. We want to be the best in the world, and we can bring the economy back. There is no reason. For example, the demand side of the position. Your GST needs to be cut at least by 50% for the next 6 months in order to recharge the economy. We have to do that kind of deficit financing, which is to be done, and it has been done all over the world. Naina just mentioned about Mr. Gadkari announcing the infrastructure development of road. We need to double the number of roads which are there, but the payments in respect of those to the contractors and the payments of the government agency, the contractors must also be done in order that the money goes in the end of the hit. Our Maharashtra government has no money. They haven't been able to pay salaries. They've only paid 50% of the salaries and are going to defer the 50%. If they are not able to pay salaries, how are they going to look after the people of Maharashtra?
Yes.
So we need to bring funds to come into it. The deficit financing can be done. It's always happened. Infrastructure, the roads in America and the autobahns of Germany
Absolutely.
were not made.
I'm glad I asked you that question. Yes, I am going to have to end here, but Mr. Hiranandani, I'm glad I asked you that question because, the full passion of what you feel has come to the fore, and that's important. That's important to hear the unvarnished truth for people who are watching. That's what we hope to bring the viewers. And you're absolutely right that, this sense that why does it matter right now? I get this a lot. Why are you talking about economy when we're in the middle of a health crisis? Well, because if we want to really get back on our feet, we need to think about the economy right now as well. We don't want to be infected with a very bad economic situation once we have this pandemic behind us. I'm going to have to end it there, but pleasure speaking to both Niranjan Hiranandani and Naina Lal Kidwai. Thank you for speaking with us today. All right, next up, when we think about COVID-19 and the pandemic, it's usually coming with a lot of panic and fear. Fear is required to the extent of being safe and, being sure that you don't go outside unnecessarily, you maintain social distancing. But there are several estimates which suggest that a large number of people may get COVID-19 sooner or later. What happens when you get COVID-19? Does it mean it's the end of the world? What is the true story like? Well, today I have with me someone who will give us a first-hand account. I'm joined by Ajit Mishra, who is Director of Institute of Economic Growth, has had COVID-19, recovered, and is back home in his first week. I'm going to speak to him after this very short break, so do come back.